All right, we are back with We Want Winners one day after the 49ers beat the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football, 36-24. And Rod, being that we're doing this show kind of with one day of reflection, uh, when it comes to like the big theme that I like to talk about to kind of start each podcast, I want to give you two options, and this is going to be somewhat of kind of where we think the season goes. But I had two reactions. First reaction was, is this the game where we'll look back and say they weathered the storm and they kind of turned their season around? Or because of all the injuries they still keep having, is this going to be more of a blip on the radar because of the Seahawks having some similar problems as the Niners, because of the Thursday night game kind of being fluky in of itself? Which of those sides of the fence do you sit?
I'm horrible at playing the game, but I kind of sit in the middle of those two things. Honestly, I this could be a touchstone moment where they turn things around, but also I have thought all along that one of the reasons they're not out of it is because all of these other teams, anybody in our division, either is having these problems like the Rams
Mhm.
or Seattle, or regardless of what you think of the Cardinals, or will have them. Because if you just look around the league, everybody is having.
Right.
It's this more so. I mean, this game has always been a game of attrition, but it really seems even more so the case this season that it's gonna, these early wins do matter. Obviously, you don't want to fall into a 1-4 hole like the Bengals. But even a team like that, they had historically Joe Burrow has started slow and then came on like a house of fire.
Mhm.
So didn't have anything to do with the 49ers, but the point is we have to, I think, as fans, uh, train ourselves to look at it as a 17 games 18-week
Mhm.
season. We can't get too caught up in where things are, good or bad. Like if I was a Vikings fan, I wouldn't necessarily think that, oh, I'm booking my New Orleans plans now because I'm 5-0. I just think that you really do have to look at it as a marathon, and no matter where you find your team finds itself at the quarter point or at the halfway point, you have to, which again is ridiculous to ask fans to do because that's kind of what we do, is to overreact,
Mhm.
but just to be um not get too high or get too low regardless of where we are at those benchmark parts. Obviously you want your team to be playing good football for sure, but injuries matter. And if you're having great health, you can't just assume that that's going to continue. And if you're having crap health like we are, we hope that it doesn't continue. And you hope also, which I'm sure we're going to get to at this point, that when you lose key players, that you will eventually get them back at some
Mhm.
point.
Mhm.
So that's where I'm at with it. Is it was a good win, because anytime you go up there to Seattle, especially on a Thursday night on a short week, banged up, and get a win, it's a good win. I know Niner fans don't like to hear, but that's like my favorite road trip in the league. I haven't been to all the places in the league, but I've definitely been everywhere west of the Mississippi, and Seattle is a great city. And even, I know our fans go back and forth, but their fans are hella nice. I mean, when you go around in your Niners gear, they lightheartedly rib you, but at least I've never had an issue where it was like anything malicious or anything. It's
Maybe during the Legion of Boom era, that was probably the hardest time to be a 49ers fan in
yeah,
Seattle.
yeah, when we
But
stunk.
yeah,
But yeah, it's a hard place. That place is deafening. And to go in there and quiet them down and win the game, even at a point where it got to like a one-score game and it was like, oh, here we go again.
oh my goodness,
We we weathered the storm. Shout out to Renardo Green,
yeah, man.
whose interception really, I think, um sealed the game for us, because they were on the march, and if they score there, who knows what happens. But yeah, it was a very good win for us.
This podcast, so Thompson to Clark, which I do with my buddy Brad Evans, we sit a little bit more on the optimistic side of things because baseball, 162 games.
Mm-hmm.
If you get fired up after a win or a loss, like you're just not going to last. Like that is a season where
Burn out.
stamina matters. With the death lineup, I think Brian and I have high expectations because of who the Warriors have been since 2015, and you have one of the greatest players of all time currently still on your roster, and you want to maximize the time that Steph Curry still has in this game. With the 49ers, I would say we're a little bit more realistic in that while what you said was 100% right on, that you do have to kind of pull back and you can't really react this early in the season. I think there are themes and there are trends that kind of give you an idea of where things are going. Now that the Niners can totally buck those trends as they have during this run, where they would start out bad and then they would end really well. And trying to gauge where that is with this team is really, really hard. One, because their Ginsu knife is still out, and the information around his injury, I'm talking about Christian McCaffrey, is still like not conclusive in any way. Like I have no idea when to expect this guy to come back. The Niners have been kind of wishy-washy on it. We've argued whether or not that's because the injury itself is really hard to diagnose, or if they're playing a little bit of poker. I know you had mentioned nationally, some people think that he's just done for the year, and the Niners don't want to say that. So that is the hardest thing for me to diagnose who this team is one, we don't know when CMC is coming back. And secondly, it's just all of these crazy injuries. You would hope that it would swing in the other direction at some point, but also at the same time, you can just have bad injury luck. And that has nothing to do with how good your team is. That has absolutely everything to do with how lucky your team is. So I think you and I sit pretty realistic on the Niners stuff, because I look on Twitter, and during a game, the Niners are either the best team in the world or the worst team in the world. And we don't analyze these games like that. Yeah, we were tough on Brock the last 2 years, but it's because he kind of had to earn it in our eyes in order to be even in the same breath as a Joe Montana or a Steve Young. And yet some folks want him so desperately to be that, so they want to mention him in those names. And so I think it's just, we have a history with this team that goes back, and we've seen what it takes to win, and we've seen some really, really bad seasons as well. We've seen wide swings with these Niners, and there are a batch of Niner fans who are like, never going to see a championship in my entire lifetime, because they were born, later than we were. And I'm not like that with that team. I would love to see them win another Super Bowl, but also at the same time, I've seen 5. So I think the way that we sit is pretty realistic. So that's why I wanted to ask you that question, because we're not really fluff when we talk about the Niners, but we're also not doomsdayers, right? We're not sitting, oh, this is the worst team in the league. There are moments where I watch and go, maybe this is just not it. But, you kind of learn and watch from every game. So It's a good place to be. What are they? 3-3
Mm-hmm.
because of how poor the NFC West is so far. They're back atop the NFC West, and they have some big upcoming games that they need to get healthy for. We'll talk about kind of the injury report coming out of that game in a little bit. But let's talk about the things, we'll start because it's a win. We'll start with the things that we liked this time instead of the things that we disliked during the losses. So I'll go first. And it was really offensively a game in which all of your playmakers on offense had good games. Brock threw for 3 touchdowns. Kittle caught 2 touchdowns. Debo took one to the house. Ayuk's stat line isn't gaudy in any way. And I almost was wondering where he was for a lot of this game. But when they needed some big catches late, he was the one making those big catches. So I was just happy to see that the playmakers were making plays and were the difference for the offense. I mean, 36 points is a good chunk of change in today's NFL. You see a lot of the offense so far through 6 weeks. 36 points is really good right now.
Yeah. It really was. My first one is going to be. It's a theme that I'm probably me. I'm the only one harping on all season was the red zone, and I think one of the things I like was George Kittle in the red zone. He was, he was clearly still a nightmare for Seattle defenders. George has always been a matchup nightmare. I like to use that word nightmare, but again, talking about us striving to be realistic, I am realistic in the fact that George has lost a step or two. Speed is really no longer a huge part of his game and the way that it was. But I mean, hell, he's 30 years old. So I mean, it's not gonna be. It's just the reality of life in general and life in football. I mean, obviously at 30 years old, he's still a young man in life, but in football, not so much. I mean, he's closer to the end of his career. Well, I'm not gonna even say that because you look at somebody like Mercedes Lewis. He's closer to
End of his prime.
Right. He's closer to the end of his prime than he is to the beginning of it. So there will be adjustments to his game. But he obviously, as he showed tonight, still has the ability to dominate these young dudes, in the right circumstances. And he was awesome. He was awesome all over, but especially in the red zone where we have been, struggling. And there's no new ways about it. We've been struggling there this season.
Yeah. Now, new kicker, at least for now, Matthew Wright still kicked. He still was kicking some field goals where they did not score touchdowns. First quarter, they drive all the way down the field. He kicks field goal. They score the pass from Debo, which was not a red zone play. And then the next score, another Matthew Wright field goal. And then the next drive, another Matthew Wright field goal right before halftime. So in the second half, they definitely played in that red zone a lot better. But in the first half, I was like, oh man, here we go again. But what you're saying about Kittle is what we said last week, which is it really doesn't make sense that they're not good in the red zone because you still have players like Debo and like Kittle who should be matchup nightmares in the red zone because of their flexibility. How many times is George going to pretend that he's blocking and then leak out and make a play like that? How many times can you line up Debo in the backfield and have him motion out of the backfield and create chaos? So those things should be beneficial in the red zone. And hopefully this is a game in which they do get over the hump a little bit. And yeah, because it's going to be necessary. You can't keep kicking field goals all game long. Even though I picked up Matthew Wright on my fantasy team right before the game to replace Moody, I wasn't too unhappy with the field goals. But man, if we would have lost by a field goal, that would have been not great. Okay, my next one is the offensive attack was way more balanced last night. I think it was 33 runs and 28 passes, where last week it was the other way and worse. And what's unfortunate is JP was going to have another big game. And my son, he came over to watch the game. I think the over-under for rushing yards for JP was 83. And he had 71 at halftime, I think. And then he just got hurt and he never came back in the game. He was easily going to go over that 83 mark for the over-under. But, it was like next man up. And I know Guerrero very much looks like a rookie. He did a lot better in reading the holes. I think Herb Street pointed out a couple of times where he did a good job. And then he had the breakaway at the end. And then all of a sudden, Patrick Taylor turned into Amp Lee catching balls out of the backfield. I was like, what? What is going on here? So that was a nice little three-headed monster. All that being said, that three-headed monster not going to be, not going to always be working the same against some of the other teams. And this is why CMC is so valuable. But I thought, the mix of the three guys was great. I would have rather seen Mason just continue to play. Obviously, don't want to see him hurt. And I guess he's got an AC joint issue that seems to be a little day-to-day. I guess he played the first snap in the third quarter and just hurt it again. And they didn't want to risk him coming back in the game.
Yeah, that was... I really do strive not to be like talk about stuff like curses and snake bit and all of that.
Madden curse for CMC.
It was like, damn, when it was like they would, Mustafa goes out. Who else did we lose on defense? We lost somebody else, and then then Mason gets hurt, and it's like, damn, we can't catch a break. And then it was that's not who I was thinking about. But then we lost Banks too, and it was just like, damn, here we go. Spencer Burford's gonna blow this game. And it was just like even when we started looking good, it was like, damn, we just can't catch a break every time. It's like there's an attrition, and then I talk about these dudes not being football players, and they go out there and they're trying to show us that they're tough, and they're trying to show their team. And then Matthew Wright got carted off the field, and it's like, oh no, here we again. I mean, I can't remember the timing because I was like doing 50 things while I was watching the game, since I knew we weren't gonna do the thing.
Yeah,
I wasn't necessarily watching as close as I normally do, but it's like, so I can't remember, but it's like, shit, are we gonna not have a kicker again? Is this gonna like matter again? But obviously it didn't. But it's gonna be interesting to see if they're having tryouts again this week. I know we've got they're calling it the midi bye. So maybe he'll be okay to kick versus Kansas City, but it's like, damn, this is this is a problem. Is Kyle gonna have to definitely just make it an edict that the kicker just runs off the field, that you don't engage at all? It's
part of his frustration for Moody is that Moody's got the leg where he can kick it out of the end zone every time if he wants. So the only time the ball is going to get returned is if he miskicks it, or if they have some sort of strategic thing where they're testing these new rules. But Matthew Wright, with a 20-mile-per-hour gust of wind, I don't think he could kick it out of the back of the end zone. So that special teams was working the entire time because of his inability to kick the ball deep. And we'll have a discussion about special teams and our things we didn't like, I'm sure. But here's what I wanted to ask you about. I'm sure we did this preamble last year about Thursday night football. I know that there's been this rule since the 60s about you don't want to interrupt Friday night lights and you don't want to interrupt college football. Move the games to Friday. Thursday is so reckless for these guys who are already playing with all kinds of injuries as it is, getting shot up just to play. Now you escalate that 3 days earlier and you see, just madness. I haven't seen any numbers about this, but I imagine the Thursday night game is the most injury-filled game of everybody's season. It's got to be. Like, you just see these guys, and I was surprised. It was like Fred's playing, George is playing, everyone was clean. There's only a couple guys not playing. I was like, wow, I fully expected other people to be on this injured list just because. And I don't know. I don't think the Thursday night games are good. I don't think it's the best version of the NFL. It seems like these teams are not prepared. It seems like there's so much more variance in some of these games, which to the casual fan, maybe they're cool with that. But these games are so reckless. Can we move this Thursday night game to Friday? Let's figure out a way to change this up.
But as well as I do, Gigi, that if they do that, Thursday ain't going away. They'll just add Friday. It's not. Thursday is here to stay, baby. That's just the money dictate, and Amazon and everybody. So I don't agree. I don't disagree with the second part. I think Friday is coming too.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be presto changeo, another media package that somebody can overpay for. But yeah, it's gonna maybe Turner Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
They don't have any basketball. Won't have basketball pretty soon. But yeah, it really is. I honestly don't follow it closely enough in other markets, but it apparently, if this week is any indication, the 49ers weren't on the field at all this week. They didn't practice at all. The first time that they got on the field was in Seattle before the game. So I guess that is the type of thing you're gonna have. You're gonna see teams just try to figure out how to best nurture their teams along to some version of health just to get through this game. And then it's a trip how and they're not different, but we all do it, is you figure out a way when something sucks to try to create a silver lining. And I think that's what's being done with this mini buy thing as well. We had to play on Thursday, but now we have whatever it is, 10 days off, which is cold comfort, but I mean, it's something, I guess. Yeah, it's this has always been bad business, and I'm complicit because it's like my weekend starts on Thursday because no matter how bad the game is, there's some sort of little bitty spread or whatever, even if it's just like some pretzels and my little sparkling ices. I set them out, and it's appointment television in a world where, for me, football is the only appointment television for me at this point. I don't really sit down. There are no like TV shows that I sit down to watch, but I will make sure that I'm in front of the TV at 10 a.m. on Sunday, religiously. And normally, usually, unless somebody offers to pay for me to play some golf, I watch every window. I'm there from 10 a.m. till 9 or 10 p.m. and it's time to watch SVP on ESPN. So it's the only time I do it, but I kind of go hard with the NFL in terms of watching their product.
I heard, I don't know if this is true. I didn't actually double check it. Maybe the Chiefs play a game this year on every single day of the week because of Thanksgiving and Christmas and all,
Wow.
I don't know if that's true. We'll have to look that up, but is it possible that they play this year every day of the week, Monday through Sunday? That's crazy.
Wow. Well, I know. Again, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure about the Tuesday and Wednesday of it, but like you say, those if Christmas or Thanksgiving fall on, or New Year's falls on any of those days, it could very well be. That's wild to think about. That's here. I know last year, the first time they did, or is that this year, that people were making a pretty big deal about the fact that the Netflix game is on a Wednesday. The Christmas Day game is on a Wednesday. This is going to be our first year of Netflix, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it is this year. So Wednesday definitely this year there is a game on Wednesday for sure. So now that all that means is, there has to be a Tuesday game somewhere in the mix. So yeah, it's definitely in play. It is definitely in play that they could play 7 days, all 7 days this year.
I think I'd be more comfortable. Let's say you move to an 18 game schedule, and I'm not comfortable with that. I think adding these games is just as dangerous. But if you made sure that a Thursday night game happened after a bye, and for both teams.
Yes.
And so you had a really prepared Thursday night game, I think I'd be okay with it. And I think the games would be way better. But it's so hard. Niners played Sunday. They played the late afternoon game. And so they're done by 4. They're done, they're probably out of the facility by 6. And then they have to be in Seattle ready to go by 5 p.m. on a Thursday. That is such a short amount of time. If they had that much foresight to plan these buys around these, midweek games, I think I'd be more comfortable with them. But then again, not every team is going to play on a Thursday. So,
well, and again, I don't know the logistics of making a schedule, but if you're going to give, and I guess Thursday has become such, a ubiquitous part of the schedule that they don't think about, it as a specialty. But if you start making Friday games and Wednesday games, okay, I ain't really thought this out, so I'm spitballing here. So don't hold me to any of this. But there's got to be a way that, if you're adding Wednesday games, you can just give teams who play in those games bye weeks, either before or after, just to accommodate the schedule. Again, I've spent zero time. That's something that just came to my mind. But I mean, if you play on a Wednesday, then you're off the previous week. You're not playing. You're not going to go from Sunday to Wednesday. That sounds terrible. Just seems ridiculous. If Thursday is bad, Wednesday is awfuler, if that is even a word. I don't know if it is.
Now, if you do get to a point where you can almost play every day of the week, let's say Thursday through Monday are on the table. Mm-hmm. If you play Friday, the Friday night Apple TV game, then maybe you can play the following Thursday and really not have to worry too much, because that's the sort of normal Monday to Sunday that I think teams are comfortable with, as long as they don't have to do too many of them. But there is more flexibility if you could play more days a week. You know what's going to happen, though, is if they do that, then Sunday we're going to be like, why is there only 7 games on Sunday and they're all the 1-7 teams playing each other? That's what's going to happen.
Because I'm already doing that when they have. Why are there 8 games in the early window on Red Zone, and then all of the other games later in the day are crap? It's just, or vice versa. Why are all the good games in the early window, and then all the bad games in the early window, and then the late games that are good are competing against the Niners?
Yeah.
So it's just you're never going to satisfy me in that way, I guess.
What else did you like about the game?
Um, I was pleasantly surprised with Mr. Wright. Coming in on a short week. He, like you had said, ended up playing a pretty critical role in those, when the offense was stalling as we had been doing. Um, for somebody as it was stated on the game that was on the couch
Yeah.
last week. He kicked well. I mean, like the kickoffs, left a lot to be desired. But really, honestly, what he was there to do was make kicks. Still, I think it's pretty kind of telling that they seem pretty steadfast that Mitch is not going to kick off anymore. I mean, because
Yeah.
if he was, this would have definitely have been the week to do it.
Did he even punt yesterday? I'm trying to remember.
I don't remember, honestly. Oh, he had at least one. He had at least one because it was a good one. We got him inside the we downed it inside the 10. But yeah, it was and then the other one where Conley ran into the dude or was pushed into the
Yes.
dude. Yeah, so at
That should have
least
been a fumble, and that should have been our
right.
ball.
Yeah, so at least 2. So yeah. I went with Mr. Wright.
They were making the joke that, you know, it's a good thing that his, like, nickname isn't Wide for wide right. And you know what it made me think about? I was like, "Oh, we had a kicker whose name was Wade Ritchie, who they started calling Wide Ritchie because he wasn't making his kicks." So, yeah, the kicker jokes, man. But like Kyle said, he's like, they're like contractors. Like, you just
yeah.
hire them like they're not really part of the team.
They just they show up and do a piece of work. Yeah.
All right, so I had 2 more. One of them is quick, and it's just that sometimes when we watch Bosa and we go, he's not having that good of a game, and then you look at the stats and you're like, oh my gosh, like he was like, he had so many, so many close calls to getting sacks based on the stats. Last night, even though he didn't have any sacks, you could see him. He was forcing Geno to step up, forcing Geno to throw early. Geno didn't have the greatest game, and there was something with him and Metcalf. They were not in sync. So, it was like Metcalf's dropping balls that look great, and then Metcalf is running a pattern, and like the Renardo Green pick, it looked like he ran a different pattern than Geno actually threw to. So I don't know what's up with those guys, but Geno is a good quarterback. Geno is
Mm-hmm.
not a great quarterback, but he's also not a poor quarterback. And Bosa was beneficial in forcing him to make some decisions that he didn't want to. Because there were moments where, they get the third down, and I was like, man, Geno's like, I think Geno has realized that when the Niners are in nickel or are in dime, they're actually worse, so much worse because
Mm-hmm.
their secondary is so up and down and inconsistent and young. But, then Bosa, I think, came to save the day a little bit and force some
That
bad
was
throws.
absolutely what I saw, was that it wasn't necessarily that Geno, well, he was bad, but that we also sped him up
Yeah.
because he was, while not, again, that's why I argue to my grave that when it comes to pressure, sacks are an incomplete vision, incomplete stat as to what is happening. And yesterday was a perfect example of that. They didn't get many sacks. They didn't get their first sack until like late. The game was already like decided by the time the Niners got their first sack. But the pressure was hellacious, especially in the first half. I only know it. I don't track it, but I only know it because they said it. He Nick had like 6 hits or hurries in the first half, which is a mind-blowing number of pressures on a quarterback without getting a sack. So yeah, the pressure was there. Just we just didn't cash it in.
Yeah, the only sack was how do you say Sam's last name?
I don't even.
There's like 400 vowels in his last
Yeah,
name. I don't know.
I can't even.
Okuaununu.
Sam,
No. I don't know. I'm not even gonna try.
like the old wrestler, Barry. Oh,
Exactly.
Sam O.
Sam O. That's better. That is much better. Yeah, Barry Orton, Randy Orton, the legend killer, Randy Orton's uncle, Barry O.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. All right. So the other one I wanted to make sure that we mention, it was really a next man up game. Renardo Green, we mentioned Mustafa, Garendo, Taylor Jr. They were forced into action. And then Garendo gets a breakaway and he stops he slides at like the 5-yard line. And I think it was one of those things where he probably heard someone on the sideline yell at him to not score.
Mm-hmm.
After the game, Shanahan was like, "No, what was he doing? Why didn't he score?" So I was like, I wonder if like someone told him like at some point in his career, like, dude, you're too greedy. Like you got to think.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, dude, you need to score. So that was kind of funky to see that happen. And like the announcers couldn't really explain it. Like I didn't really see any. I was like, why did he do that?
And you want to talk about a box score anomaly. So he ends up going 10 for like 99, but like he got 76 on that run.
Yeah.
So then that means he was like 9 for 23. Yeah.
8
So
for 23, whatever it was.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, that's why they got him is because he's got that breakaway. And it was right there. It was right there for him to hit, and he hit it. So good for him.
And it seems like, up till that point, it seemed like that was the only way him and Taylor were gonna play was if Kyle was forced to play them.
Yeah.
Because they didn't get. I don't think Taylor got any run in the first 4 weeks. And I know Garendo did, but then he like fumbled and it seemed like he was in a lightweight doghouse.
Yeah.
Because Mason was like leading the world in touches, even with Christian out. So they're mindful of back injuries. But it's like, nah, we're not taking this dude off the field. He just, he just has to. You got to figure it out.
But I do wonder if the injury that Mason did sustain makes Kyle second guess that and like, okay, maybe we do got to play Garendo a little bit more so that the wear and tear on Mason, because Mason hasn't played a season like this before.
Yeah, and he has a hellacious usage rate. He's like last time I checked, he was like leading the league in attempts by like 45 attempts. So he was like ahead by a lot. So yeah, he was also obviously leading the league in yards. I mean, in rushing yards. But yeah, it seemed at the time, like at week 4, that usage was, part of me is saying it's unsustainable, but then it's like maybe I'm being a girly man because tell Ricky Williams about usage with his like 400 carries 3 straight years or something like that.
I mean, I think we've seen that it doesn't necessarily bode well for long careers,
Right.
but that's
But
like the position anyways at this point.
exactly. When have teams cared anything about them being disposable? Not or we'll go even a step further. When have the Shanahans ever cared about that position being disposable? Like not ever. Mike and now Kyle just seems to be able to cycle those dudes in and get production out of them. I was talking to somebody today, just randomly, some random dude at Ike's Sandwich, and I mentioned it. It would not shock me at all if Elijah Mitchell turns into like Raheem Mostert and goes somewhere else and is super effective, because it's not, for him, it's not a talent issue. It's simply being able to stay healthy. But he's just another one of those Shanahan guys that they like got in the 7th round, who clearly has the ability, specifically, particularly in that system, to be effective, if he could stay on the field. So I mean, and he went to Louisiana Lafayette. I went there for a little bit. His little hometown. I had a friend who lived there, so I'm rooting for Erath Elijah to do something in the league, even if it's not here with the 49ers.
Yeah. No, I mean, he was good early in his career before the injuries. All right, the what we didn't like list is hopefully a little shorter.
I was honestly scraping like the bottom of the barrel to find things, so
I
you
mean,
can definitely
yes,
take the lead on
I mean,
that.
special teams got to be the first one, right? Giving up the kickoff for the touchdown was kind of the igniter for Seattle to get back in the game, and it was unfortunately, for the Niners, like it's just been like if you look at all of the units on their team. I'm not saying that the secondary is this fantastic unit compared to the rest of the league. Special teams, they might be the worst in all of football right now.
And you talk about Kyle maybe having some kind of self-reflection. When you hear him say out loud that those, areas are de-emphasized, and then he talked about, I think it was last week or the week before, how when you have injuries, particularly at linebacker and defensive back, um, special team, special teams, runs primarily all on linebackers and DB. So if you're thin or weak there, it also shows up in your special teams. And that's definitely something that we're dealing with right now. And then you couple that with the fact that it never has seemed to be something that we really emphasize beyond signing a like special teams ace like Odom or whatever. It seems like we always got one of those, but it doesn't seem like we've never really spent huge money on having like a star coordinator over there, or it just doesn't seem. It seems kind of like the offensive line, something that's like an afterthought that we're just trying to patch together, and just making do and trying to hope they don't lose us games. But we're way beyond that now, because like you say, I haven't looked at the stats, but I would find it hard to believe that there's somebody else out there that's worse than the Niners. That would really be something to see.
Now, to be fair, the kicking game has been strong. Moody has been good. Wright was good.
Mitch has been good.
Mitch has been good. Like he's had a couple of. He's been like on some of the punt returns. Some of that is just him not hitting what we normally see as a Mitch punt, but he's having a good year still. It's really just been the coverage, right? It's been the kickoff coverage with these new rules. It's been punt coverage in some instances. And I guess I should say if they actually did get the muffed or what should have been the muff punt that was not called correctly, because according to the NFL, um, the television camera angle was not available for them. And if you think about that, like I'm a viewer, I'm gonna be I'm gonna give up that angle. I don't need that angle. Let's let the people who are making these decisions, let's give them that camera angle. I don't need it. I just want them to make the right decision, because I don't know how you make that mistake. I mean, the excuses are the excuses, but I hope they fix something like that, because that was ridiculous, where we as viewers can clearly see the ball hit off the dude's hands or his fingertips, and the NFL is saying, well, we did not have that specific angle, yet the viewers had that specific angle. That seems like a disconnect to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. What did I have anything else? I didn't really have anything else outside of injuries. If you want to be a little bit of a stickler, we talked about the early red zone issues. I think there was no, and really the Lockett play in the end zone, he got away with a little bit of a push off to make it 29-24. The Kenneth Walker score, that was when the momentum had shifted. But I can't say that with that Thursday night game where you kind of want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I thought that they played a pretty good game. Third quarter, wasn't the best, but overall I thought it was pretty solid.
I had beyond special teams, I had to put something down, and the only thing I could come up with was JJ and BA 64 yards.
Yeah.
That wasn't great. But then you look at the stats today, and it's like BA's win rate is still like through the roof. So he's beating the hell out of corners on his side of the field, but it's only paid off the 1 week so far.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that.
All right, let's get to our Coach Singh player of the game.
I want winners. I want people that want to win.
All right, what do you have for
this week? Was the closest Brock got to getting a Coach Singh Player of the Week award, but alas, Debo snatched it right out of his hands. He was, at all three of the places, receiving, rushing, and he had a long kick return. So, 52 yards in returns, as well as 102 in receiving. So yeah, Debo was my guy. Who, I don't even know if you agree with Debo, but if not Debo, who would have been some of your candidates? Mason was on the way before he, had a short night.
I think Debo's solid. I think Kittle would have been solid. Brock would have been solid. Renardo Green for the one play would have been solid. Nick, if he turns one of those into sacks, he could have been there. Kind of an underrated game for Fred Warner, because he did get the fumble, but they didn't get it back. And then he did have 11 tackles, so he was all over the field, but that's like normal Fred. But yeah, I like the Debo pick, because you need to make big plays, and he is a game changer. And that is why he is so valuable to the team, because he can make, and he's so funny because Brock threw that moon ball and I was like, man, this could have got picked off and taken the other way. And I guess the defender took like a bad angle on it or something, but that ball had a lot of air underneath it. But Brock will throw some of those every once in a while. But yeah, no, I mean, he was a big part of us getting out to a strong lead was that play, and that was mostly Debo. That Brock just had to get the ball there.
Yeah, and and the thing I thought about was you talking about that last week, about featuring Debo more for reasons just like that, because on every time you just get him the ball on a slant or on a end around, he has the potential of turning that 5 yards into, taking it to the house. And that was a perfect case in point of that, getting him moving across the field. And then it was just, he just ran through their ran through the whole defense.
Even Juice got a touchdown. They started doing the wifey leap over there in the end zone with
the
Juice's
Lumen
wife
leap
and Kittle's wife right there. So yeah, that was fun to see. I think in another era of the Seahawks, the fans would have been a little bit more angry, but they seem to not be. Not that Seattle shouldn't have high expectations. They have a pretty good team, but yeah, it's just not the same expectations of yesteryear. All right. I guess the only thing we need to mention is there was news coming out today that it looks like Ricky Pearsall, they've opened the practice window for him, which is great news. They did not do the same for Christian McCaffrey. By the way, shout out to Shelvin and Davis in the chat. Shelvin is on the flip side. Shelvin thinks that CMC is going to come back sooner than later. I don't know if that is just him being optimistic or not, but he's zigging on all of the zagging that's going on with CMC. And then Jordan Mason it looks like he's day to day. Also, I guess did they say anything about Mustafa? I don't know if I saw anything about Mustafa, but then Matthew Wright. I'm glad it's Matthew Wright, not Nick Wright. Matthew Wright had shoulder popped out, but they were able to pop it back in, I guess, like right after it popped out. So that I don't know. Do you need to get your shoulders into your kicks? I don't know how that works.
He might need to. He needs everything that he can get into it.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it. So next week, what are you thinking about next week?
I mean, those dudes are like 5. They've been scuffling, but they're 5-0. So I mean, that is ridiculous. And then, Mahomes is
also coming off of a bye. Niners are gonna have some extra days off.
Yeah, so that's gonna be interesting, and I'm just glad that we're gonna get them. I cannot believe that they are going to continue to go down the road with this group of receivers, and I believe. Well, I don't think that they'll make the splashy move for somebody like Devontae. It would not surprise me to see if things continue to go the way they're going in Cleveland. It would not surprise me to see Amari Cooper end up in playing for the Chiefs, and I don't want to see any part of that unless it's in February in New Orleans. So I'm kind of glad we're getting them now at this point, and I still, even with them scuffling at home, I don't necessarily feel great about it, but we got a puncher's chance if we can get some of these secondary guys back. Having Ward out there would be nice. It would be really nice. I had completely missed that. I didn't realize until I was watching the pregame when I found out that he wasn't going to play. I didn't even know that was on the board. I don't know. Maybe I was just.
It sounds like he was pretty banged up going into the Cardinals game.
Okay. Yeah. So
Shelvin also said that low ankle sprain for Mustafa day to day. So it looks like he should be okay.
Okay. Well, that's good. Good.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think the Chiefs are ripe for being beat. They figure out ways to win. That is very clear. Pat Mahomes is the best winner in the NFL from the quarterback position today. But just looking at their season so far, They beat the Ravens by 7 on opening night, beat the Bengals by 1, beat the Falcons by 5, beat the Chargers by 7. Now, they did take care of the Saints in the their last game. They beat up the Saints a decent amount. I think that they're ripe to get beat. I think if the Niners play their physical style, their very balanced attack, and can get a little healthy. Some of this is also the Chiefs are dealing with with some roster stuff, with Rice being out, and though Pat Mahomes turned Smith-Schuster's clock back about 5 years in that Saints game. So I'm not gonna call it right now and say what the score is, but I expect the Niners to compete in that game, and they're home. I expect them to win. Like, they got a lot to play for. They got a lot to prove inside that locker room too. I'm sure these guys are kind of unhappy with the way the season has started. And if you beat the defending Super Bowl champions at home, that could be a nice little jump off point for the rest of the season from a confidence standpoint.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll be back next week. So Niners and Chiefs is a 125 game for the 20th, and we'll be on, probably after 5 or so to recap that game. So next Sunday night, not this Sunday. We could take a break this Sunday. Rod's going to be watching football from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Yeah, it's clear who has the wife here, and it's not me.
All right, yeah, I'm going to Arizona actually tomorrow morning.
Oh, nice for your
for my parents' 50th. Yeah.
50th.
So the Thursday night game happened in the perfect week because then got the game out of the way. Celebrate with my parents. This
I send them a We Want Winners. Congratulations on 50 years.
All righty, thank you for that. Okay, thanks to everybody for checking in with us. For Rod, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.